Russia's spring offensive was supposed to end it all. Ukraine would fall. The Donbass would belong to Russia. Finally, Putin would have everything that he has been demanding in peace talks, but Ukraine had other ideas. Putin's offensive is finished as Ukraine has done something devastating to Russia's front line. Russia is trying. It has launched 7,000 attacks. But all it has in return is a total disaster. Russia's advance is now so slow that Putin's grandkids won't even live long enough to see victory in Ukraine. Russia has been trying. Oh, how it has been trying. According to Deep State, a statistical analysis of Russia's offensive tempo shows that there has been an increase of 37.5% in the volume of Russia's assault operations over the course of May. This was Putin's big push. After a couple of bleak months where Russia lost around 70,000 of its soldiers during the early stages of the spring offensive, this increase in the number of assaults was supposed to finally break Ukraine. By the end of May, Russia had launched more than 7,000 attacks against Ukraine. That is supposed to project power. But when you look at the results of those strikes, what you really see is desperation. Despite this scaling up of the spring offensive, Russia achieved practically nothing on the territorial front. By the end of May, all that Russia had to show for its renewed assault was 14 square kilometers of Ukraine. You heard that right, 14 square kilometers. For context, the measure of things says this is an amount of territory roughly equivalent to the size of LAX. So Russia has basically managed to capture an airport's worth of land in a month, where it launched more attacks against Ukraine than at any other point in 2026. That's not just a bad result. It's so utterly catastrophic that Putin could live several lifetimes and still never see the fall of Ukraine. His grandkids are still going to be watching Russian troops shatter themselves against Ukraine's defenses at this point, and we're going to do the math soon to show you just how bad it's gotten for Russia. Before that, there's more about just how much of a failure all of this is for Russia. The country's advance is now so slow that Russia has fallen into the red when it comes to territory gains. Ukraine is now liberating more territory than Russia is claiming. That happened once already in 2026, as April saw Russia record a net territory loss of 116 square kilometers. But at least Russia had more occupied territory to show for its assaults in April. According to Euromaidan Press and United 24 Media, what we've seen in May is record-breaking for all the wrong reasons from the Russian perspective. Russia has not recorded a month like this since Ukraine's 2023 counteroffensive, which is a period when Russia was put on the defensive. Back then, taking territory was put on the back burner until the counteroffensive ended. Now taking territory is right at the top of Russia's priority list, and yet it's making progress at the same glacial rate as it was when it wasn't trying to attack at all. That's not just bad, it's humiliating. Much of this news comes from Deep State, which is an open-source military analyst and provides constant updates about the situation in Ukraine. In a Telegram post, Deep State shared the details and offered a small caveat to its figures. Although it should be understood that for security purposes, we show the advance of the defense forces of Ukraine with a delay, therefore without specifics, we are ready to declare that this is the first month in recent years after the counteroffensive 2023, when the increase in the occupied territory for the Katsaps became negative, Deep State declared. Katsaps is a slur used to describe Russian soldiers. This statement tells us that the figures aren't 100% confirmed just yet, as a few more days of Ukrainian actions need to be recorded, but let's face it, Putin. Things aren't going to look much better for your military when the final figures roll in. They might even end up looking worse, especially if Ukraine has pulled off more counterattacks toward the end of May. Another caveat is offered up by Euromaidan Press, which points out that the figures coming out of Ukraine right now are relative to the method used to measure advances. Specifically, it notes that much of the front line is now a grey zone where neither side has definitive control. Russia has been sending infiltration units into these grey zones to create the illusion of control, and we'll be covering how that strategy has been backfiring soon. If these infiltrators were counted, Russia would lay claim to more territory, but they aren't, and they shouldn't be. A handful of soldiers sequestered away in a hidey hole doesn't amount to control over territory. It just means there are Russians trying to survive in the grey zones as Ukraine hunts them down. Deep State isn't the only analyst reporting on the sorry state of affairs that is Russia's spring and summer offensive. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, has equally depressing news for Putin based on its own analysis. In a May 28th report, the ISW said that Russia's president is being fed maps that feature greatly exaggerated claims about Russia's advance, meaning that everything that he sees paints a false picture of the reality of his offensive. Again, it comes down to the grey zones. If just one Russian soldier manages to hide himself in a settlement, Russia acts as if that settlement is claimed. We can see this in the numbers. According to the ISW, the period between the beginning of January and May 26 has seen Russia manage to definitively claim just 104 square kilometers of Ukraine. Divide that by 5 and you get an approximate average of 20.8 square kilometers per month. During the same period, Russian infiltrators have managed to advance into 628 square kilometers of Ukraine. But again, this isn't control. It just means there are isolated pockets of troops inside the grey zones that are trying, and often failing, to not die. By comparison, the ISW claims, Russia had managed to seize 1,619 square kilometers of Ukraine during the first 5 months of 2025. Even if we count the grey zones that the infiltrators have entered, Russia has claimed less than half the amount of territory in the first 5 months of 2026 than it did in 2025. Take these uncontrolled grey zones out of the equation and Russia has basically gotten nowhere after tens of thousands of casualties. Let's dig deeper into some numbers. We told you earlier that not even Putin's grandkids will live long enough to see Russia defeat Ukraine at this point. We weren't lying. If Russia maintains its current rate of advance of 14 square kilometers per month in the Donbass region, it will be decades, even centuries, before Russia fully occupies the region. Right now, Russia still has between 6,000 and 7,000 square kilometers of Donetsk to take, which is the part of the Donbass that Russia needs to claim before it can act as though it owns the region. The spring offensive is mostly focused on this region, and the 7,000 plus assaults that Russia launched in May were so ineffective, largely because Putin's patsies are going up against the formidable defenses that Ukraine has built into the Donetsk fortress belt of cities. Splitting the difference, we'll say that Russia has 6,500 square kilometers of Donetsk left to take. At its current rate of advance, it would take 464 months for Russia to finally take Donetsk. That amounts to about 38.7 years, assuming that every scrap of territory that Russia takes from now on is in Donetsk. Okay, so Putin will be dead by then, but his grandkids, and perhaps even his kids, would live long enough to see the fall of one small region of Ukraine. We're about to make it all so much worse for Putin. Right now, Russia controls about 20% of Ukraine, according to Reuters. Ukraine isn't a small country. To take it all, Russia has to occupy 603,550 square kilometers of territory. It has 80% of that territory left to go, which amounts to 482,804 square kilometers. Well, this is already looking bad for the Putin lineage. Dividing that number by 14 square kilometers per month gives us 34,488.6 months of fighting left for Russia to take all of Ukraine. That's 2,874 years. Whatever has sprung from the Putin gene pool at that point might not even know that they're related to Putin. It's starting to feel like we're more likely to see the heat death of the universe before we see Russia obtain the ultimate victory in Ukraine that Putin is so desperate to see. Being a little facetious here. Of course, the Ukraine war is fluid, and the 14 square kilometers in May doesn't mean that Russia is only going to claim that much of Ukraine per month from now on. It will have months where it claims more, and given what we've seen from Ukraine in 2026 so far, there will be months where Russia is on the losing end of the territorial battle. Still, Russia is supposed to have one of the strongest militaries in the world, yet it spent May launching more than 7,000 assaults and sacrificing somewhere in the region of 1,500 soldiers per day by the end of May, just to take enough land for an airport. Egg, meet Putin's face. Russia's embarrassment is plain for all to see, as Putin's front line is clearly collapsing. But that brings us to the key question: how did this happen? A supposed military superpower has been turned into a minnow, and the story of how 14 square kilometers was the best that Russia could do in May is equal parts about Russia's utter incompetence and the lethality of Ukraine's defense. We're about to cover both. But before we do, this is a quick reminder that you're watching The Military Show. If you like what you see, remember to subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos covering the Ukraine war along with other military developments around the world. First up, Russia's tactical blunders. We've mentioned Russia's infiltration tactics already. The strategy, which appeared in 2025, is simple. Rather than launching the sorts of large, mechanized assaults that characterized the first few years of the war, Russia now favors sending tiny units, often with as few as a couple of soldiers, into the grey zones. Their jobs are simple. They find somewhere to hide and hope that the support comes. All the while, Russia uses these infiltrators to inflate its numbers, making Russian advances seem more impressive than they really are. Some believe that this approach is more dangerous to Ukraine. The New Voice of Ukraine reported on May 3rd. It's certainly quieter. Meat isn't being fed into the grinder in quite the same way as it was before, as Russia's soldiers move under the cover of darkness while keeping radio communication to a minimum. They're trying to slip through the net rather than tearing the net apart. But this infiltration strategy is a large part of the reason why the real territory gains Russia is making are as meager as we see now. As United 24 Media points out, the big benefit of the infiltration approach in 2025 was that Ukraine wasn't ready for it. Russia managed to advance using small units and then followed up with larger assaults for much of the year. That's not happening in 2026. Ukraine is wise to what Russia is doing, which means the handfuls of infiltrators that Russia is sending now rarely even reach their objectives before they're eliminated by Ukraine's drones. Those that do reach where they're supposed to go rarely last long, as yet more drones, along with teams on the ground, hunt them down. There's a clue in there about the role that Ukraine is playing in Russia's failures. Stick with us to find out more. The point here is that there was once a clever Russian strategy that has become a strategic noose around Putin's neck. All the infiltrators are doing is moving around the grey zones before they die. They're not actually capturing territory. For Russia to make any real tactical advances in Ukraine, it needs some element of mechanization to back up its infiltration strategy. But that's another problem for Putin. Russia doesn't have what it needs to strengthen its assaults. Achieving an advance of just 14 square kilometers on the back of over 7,000 assaults showcases the complete degradation of Russia's military on both the tactical and equipment levels. Russia sees that degradation and is desperately trying to solve the problem. How? By signing deals with the bloody Taliban. We guess terrorists will help Putin do what he can't do on his own, though how Russia expects the Taliban to strengthen its assaults in Ukraine is anybody's guess. There are signs that Russia has a plan here. According to United 24 media, Russia has made an offer to repair the Soviet-era hardware that the Taliban currently has. This is hardware that the Taliban got their hands on when fighting against the Soviet Union several decades ago. Now Russia is offering to fix it, and the reason why seems to be to potentially set up a small pipeline of weapons that could flow back into Russia. If that's the plan, then Russia isn't going to be getting its hands on much. All the Taliban has is legacy hardware such as T-55 and T-62 tanks, and a handful of old helicopters. That sort of equipment is food for Ukraine's drones. It's not going to help Russia improve the effectiveness of its assaults. Even if Taliban tanks do somehow end up in Ukraine, Russia's soldiers might not use them. In an April 28th report, Gwara Media, which is an outlet based in the Ukrainian region of Kharkiv, claimed that Russian units in the region are actively refusing to conduct mechanized assaults. They're scared, and they should be. Driving a tank or armored vehicle just makes you a bigger target for Ukraine's drones, so the muscle that is supposed to back the infiltrators just isn't coming, even when it's available. Speaking of manpower, that's another factor in Russia's dismal performance in May. In its report on Russia's utter failure to put a dent in Ukraine's defenses in May, Euromaidan Press says that part of Putin's problem lies in the fact that Russia is struggling to recruit enough soldiers to accompany its increased tempo of assaults, with the amount of meat needed to wear Ukraine down. Ukraine's military is draining Russian manpower faster than Putin can replace it, and that's a problem that Russia has faced in practically every month of 2026 so far. United 24 reported on April 1st that Russia had managed to recruit just 22% of its target during the first quarter of the year, which is a 3% shortfall. That situation isn't getting better, and it's led to Russia looking everywhere for potential solutions. Foreign mercenaries are being hired because too many Russians have wised up and realized that a contract to fight for Russia in Ukraine means they're taking a one-way trip. According to Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Russia's military has even resorted to tricking drunks on the streets of Russia into signing contracts. Those intoxicated fools wake up with major headaches, wondering why they're sitting in military recruitment offices awaiting transport to barracks. Russia's numbers are starting to look bad. But the real issue behind all of this, and a huge factor in Russia's piddling advance, lies in the quality of the soldiers that it's recruiting. Russia is pulling from the dregs of what's available. Dargans reports that some recruits are given 2 weeks or less of training before they end up on the front lines. That's not enough to do anything but move forward and hope you don't get blown up by a drone. None of these recruits will know much about taking or holding a position. All Ukraine has to do is keep on grinding through the meat, and you get what we've seen in May. 7,000 assaults by people who are barely a step up from civilians against seasoned pros in the Ukrainian military. There will only ever be one result of that, and Russia has just discovered what it is. And that brings us back to Ukraine. The reason why Russia is having a hard time replenishing its ranks is that Ukraine is killing them at a ridiculous rate. We touched on that earlier. 70,000 casualties in 2 months are catastrophic for Russia, and it also showcases just how effectively Ukraine is countering Russia's infiltration strategy. As for how Ukraine is doing it, the answer lies in the kill zones. They are getting bigger. And that means the grey zones where Russian soldiers used to be able to hide to support their country's exaggerated claims of advance are even more dangerous than ever before. Ukraine's FPV drones were already killers. Now they have a longer range to go along with their effectiveness. In a June 2nd report, Forbes revealed that Ukraine now has an FPV drone that is capable of hitting targets that are 102 kilometers behind the front lines. Think about what that means for Russia's infiltrators. Ukraine can now deploy drones to hunt people and tanks deep into the grey zones without needing a mothership to do it. Any hint of a mechanized assault can be snuffed out in a heartbeat. Tanks and armored vehicles won't even get close, which gives Ukraine even more time to hunt down the small units of soldiers that Russia is sending into the grey zones. As FPV drone technology improves, Ukraine is also using a new generation of mid-range drones to batter Russia in the rear. Command posts are being taken out by these drones, meaning that already minimal communication with the front is disappearing entirely. Ukraine's new drones are also attacking air defenses, opening up more chances to strike and destroying logistical routes and infrastructure in the rear. This is all about taking out the support structures on which the frontal assaults stand. And what we see as a result is Russia's poorly trained cannon fodder getting eliminated by the thousands, no matter how many assaults they launch. As for what happens next, Putin isn't going to magically come to the realization that the Russian offensive has collapsed. He'll keep ordering assaults by the thousands, and Ukraine will carry on batting them back. The reality is that Russia's offensive was finished before it ever got off the ground. 14 square kilometers of ground taken in May is pathetic. It's a total disaster for Putin, and a humiliation that means the Ukraine war will last long after he and his kids and his kids' are long gone. Oh, and all of this is happening as Russia itself is getting struck over and over by Ukraine. The one thing that Russia still has going for it is its ability to pull off long-range attacks. The two can play at that game. After Russia attacked Kyiv, Ukraine responded with devastating strikes deep into the heart of Russia. Find out why this means that the Ukraine war may be reaching its most critical level yet by watching our video. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show so you don't miss any of our uploads. And thank you for watching.